I just want to report, I mean, Vid asked me to report on a small kind of brainstorming group which has been formed around an idea which I want to share. And I think that some of the speakers might be able to contribute ideas, criticism, or even more. It started off with something, working title was originally the Liberland Virtual Marketplace. Now I'm starting to call it Liberland Cyber Urban Incubator. And basically it connects up with the idea of anticipating the creation of a place like Liberland, a big real estate project, a free trade zone, maybe some kind of incubator startup cluster of the kinds we are actually designing quite a few in China at the moment. Some of them are called unicorn, in fact. So the idea here is to somehow, and in Liberland is particularly pertinent, to anticipate that through a design, but also to open up that design already through a kind of digital twin cyberspace condition. So I think that's the idea here, so to make appetite, but also to introduce the project, but also allow those network effects and the co-location synergies already start to flourish ahead of literally co-locating in the urban space. And then you can see that how this could be partially a stand-in and already function before the urban space comes along. And in particular now, I think I've been recently thinking a lot about the idea of cyberspace, which came up in the 90s as the version of the internet. Now with all these, explosion of virtual interaction and virtual communication, with all the tools like Zoom and many other systems, and you can see the limitations. That's something more three-dimensional, something more spatial, where you inhabit a conference space, but also otherwise in urban interaction spaces. That would be the idea, to also then allow for this to become a marketing for the real estate project. So this is not only that you would join up, you could buy an option of a piece of land, a piece of real estate. This could also be a tool for some kind of participatory evolution of the design. So it is also not only co-location, networking, who you want to sit next with and who you want to be part of that community, but also how you take up space and grow that, and maybe even a secondary market in space units, particularly maybe for startup companies, for corporates. Of course, that would be probably in Liberland would be a lot of the, hopefully, the Bitcoin on blockchain, let's say rather companies, tech companies who are already in the network of VITs would maybe make use of such a place. And so I think it's something at the moment. We're just 4 people. I mean, VIT himself, we have regular phone calls and the circulating white papers. The driving force, Daniela Gattovici, who's been also organizing the first Liberland and now second Liberland conference, competition. Andrei Voronkov, who has been associated with Liberland and who is an expert in things like metaverses and tokenization, and Shajay Bhushan, who is leading our ZHA code, our coding group at Hadid Architects. So what we have at the moment is just this idea, building up some, problem areas which this tool would solve. Particularly, I think what's important for real estate companies, how you could actually generate a tenancy group ahead of time, and in Liberland, of course, a kind of corporate cluster who would love to be close to each other, be with each other, and make that visceral, make that visible. I think, and so what I find fascinating, by the way, it was a big pleasure for me to watch VIT and to see the catalog and all the things, projects and events and maturing of that whole project. I think it's wonderful. And I was very much inspired also to see the e-residency app from Steve and his kind of expansion of that into the all-in-one app. And I see a lot of synergy and overlap actually with the project we are envisaging. So maybe Steve should come in and contribute, because rather than having a graphic page and web page experience to have all these features also exist in a kind of VR type experience, where you inhabit a space with avatars, and where you could have a conference of 40. Not only that you have 7 people on the screen and the rest are hidden, but you hierarchize and you gather in a space, and you can do chit chats on the side rather than scrolling down a menu. So there's this kind of experience, but also simply an experience where it's not only multi-user, so it's inspired by multi-user games, by metaverses, which at the moment are in the game industry, but connected very, very closely to a particular real estate project. And I think this idea, which we're starting as the Liberland Cyber Urban Incubator, could also become a general methodology and tool. So this whole thing would also offer itself up as a startup venture for angel investors. So I'm not sure if people like Thomas can advise and help to discuss. And I think similarly, I suspect that the e-residency app, or even the whole idea which Sam was talking about in terms of e-governance, some of these tools and capabilities, they obviously could also be franchised out and have an independent existence. Of course, Liberland is the anchor, Liberland is the brand, Liberland is the first instantiation of this, but there will be other versions and lives and revenue streams coming to an effort like this. And there's an enormous amount of intellectual effort, which I see here fantastically gathering, and we want to add another component to that. And I hope that this could take root. I mean, the way we're talking about this, I mean, we also have, there's looking for technology partners, and there's some companies out there like Confermatic who are doing virtual conferencing, and that seems to be a hot topic, of course, with Corona and the lockdown and what we all experienced in the last half year nearly. It points in this direction that we want that. And I mean, even Liberland University, I think, could have an existence online. And it reminds me of when I was a young teacher at the Technical University in Berlin in 94, 95, 96. We actually, 95, we had cyberspace was so big on the agenda. The internet had just started in kind of text-based, and there was this notion of cyberspace coming through Neuromancer, but also through some architects taking it up, like Michael Benedict. And I had, at the time, I was developing the virtual college, this idea of having all this seminars and offerings and lectures in a 3D virtual building, which is a university building, university campus. And that could, of course, also later on mirror a real campus. And what I find beautiful about it and interesting about it, that we can use all the navigation skills, the orientation capacities, our familiarity with 3D space to facilitate that into a virtual experience. But if we know that this is at the same time a real place, there could be really fantastic synergy. So it will be a VR experience, but also later on overlaid in a kind of augmented reality fashion onto the real space. And what I see coming as well is what makes me think about that. When we're moving back to the office gradually, there will be more and more people who stay remotely. And we will have these meetings which will be mixed, real co-presence and virtual dialing in. And that should be one of those surfaces of the meeting room, would then be just an extension of that space. And you have virtual presences mixing with real presences. And this is the kind of digital twin overlay of virtual and real. But also it's both anticipation, participation in the creation of an urban space, at the same time a parallel continuous cyberspace. This could also attach to existing current real projects, whether it's a kind of a finance center and a free trade zone which exists already and acquires a kind of digital twin aspect, or you anticipate and you help the creation of that real urban space. So that's the idea, and I think Apatin was particularly then one part where we want to make that more concrete, where you actually can start selling space, selling places, spaces. You just put options down but you already start communicating. You're already in that co-working space with all the exciting collaborators potentially you want to gather in a space like this. So this is not a kind of random sample, and Liberland would never have a random sample. It would have a kind of, people come together who are already latently working together, and that cooperation and synergy generation, knowledge exchange, and cooperation potential is the real benefit which I think everybody could get from this. So that's the sketch. It's no more than that at the moment. An invitation to everybody who wants to co-think and contribute, maybe with investment, with time, with energy, with technology, partnering up. That's the, I think, sketch and idea. I think it's an exciting one, very contemporary. And I think Liberland is a perfect brand, the perfect vehicle for something like this, which was on my mind. And the Zaha architects have been thinking about things like this, also with some of the research groups and academic research we're doing. So that's the idea, and I think Liberland is a perfect symbiosis. And I'm very excited actually to see all the speakers and where you're coming from and how that could be and something which promotes Liberland, which helps Liberland into existence, but also takes off its own life and franchises itself around the world as a real great facilitating tool for setting up these kind of incubator communities. And these are entrepreneurial projects, and I think there would be a market for that. So I'll leave it with that. And again, exciting to see everybody, and maybe there will be a discussion later in the chat room, etc. Or you contact us. As I said, Daniela Gadovici is maybe the hub for communicating that. Just get in touch and see what you can contribute. And I think sure Steve Kovac is one of them. The characters who could be a great asset to that.